Hey everyone, welcome to the Parts Girl podcast. I'm super excited to be interviewing Brandin Wilkinson. Welcome,
Hey, thank
Brandin.
you for having me, Kaylee. And real quick, before anything, I just want to acknowledge you for the success that you've had on the show. It requires consistency and work ethic, like just all of it. So not easy. So well done.
Oh, thank you. It's been a lot of fun figuring it out. There's been days where I'm like, why am I doing this? But
Yeah. Yeah,
I
stay
am
on the
happy to,
path. Stay on the path. Yeah.
yeah, you just got to stay on the path. And you've been on my list for actually quite a while because I've been following your journey.
Oh,
And
thank you.
I'm really excited to, get to know you, especially because you're in a new role now. So you're with the same dealership, but you've been
Yeah.
assigned a new role. I want to start with just talking about that.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Be more than happy to. So I joined
Oh,
the
wait.
oh, yeah.
First, what
Yeah.
what dealership are you with? We didn't even say that.
Well, that's okay. It's all good. With the Bannister Automotive Group. So we're based out of Kelowna, BC, Canada. And we have 18 stores right now, and we're growing. Like, we're a fast growing dealership. It's like I could talk for an hour just on or more just on the family and just how amazing they are and how supportive they've been. It's
Um,
yeah, it's incredible. It really is. And I feel like I hold myself to a high standard with that and have certain criteria that I look for with, dealer groups and families and things like that. And yeah, they're absolutely incredible. So about a year and a half ago, I started as their director of operations and worked alongside really closely with the VP of operations and as well as the Bannister family themselves. And so that was a bit of a transition out of the retail world into more, I guess, kind of corporate. Even though we don't look at it that way, like we don't like to use the verbiage head office. We don't like to use the term employees. We go down more the path of dealer support team and team members. That's kind of the language
oh,
that we use internally.
I like that.
Yeah. So what transpired was like they were really open to hearing. They Bannisters were really open, and the partners were really open to hearing more about my background, where my passions were. Like, I love working with numbers and statements and stuff like that. Like, it's been a really positive journey in that regard, and I had a lot to learn too with effectively being able to read financial statements and what they tell you. So that was a really great journey for me to go down that path. And then at the start of this year, we started to get really serious about like, hey, what if we ran a pilot leadership development program? So what we did was we had pulled 12 managers, one of whom was a partner with four of our locations actually. And so it was really great that he jumped on board and took the lead with it and was open to doing it. And so we did that over the course of 4 months. We ran 8 modules total, and it covered areas like emotional intelligence, team building, teamwork, sort of like the makings of great leadership as well, and then effective communication, because I think that's imperative more than ever, more so on the side of active listening. Because I think sometimes, especially in the retail side of it, we get so consumed by the day. Things are happening so fast that we forget to kind of slow down. And at least that's been my experience, is like, I know I've been guilty of just moving too quick and just wanting to give advice, not realizing sort of the compound effect of that, how it's not really serving the other person as well or the team as a whole. So we spent some time in that area as well. And then we had a really cool, like, after the 4 months, so we ran 2 modules per month for 4 months. So we created an online course essentially. So what would happen is the team member would consume the course it was short videos, like 12, 15 minutes. They would read that. There'd be 3 or 4 homework questions that went along with it. And then we would use that as the foundation for our coaching call. And so when I say where I'm so blessed is that Lori Bannister, she's been through an ICF accredited coaching program, which is kind of the gold standard in the coaching world. And she has a couple hundred hours of coaching under her belt. She really paved the way because she was doing this before even I came on board with some of the team members. So her and I did this together. And so we took on 6 each. And so we started doing the coaching sessions along with the online program. And then at the end of the 4 months, we had a leadership workshop. So it's kind of like a wrap up, like a celebratory, like an award thing and all that kind of stuff. It was really great. And we had, Mark Bannister come in and speak. And that was a big deal because Mark's like one of the Bannisters, right? So
Like the guy. Yeah.
yeah, totally. And actually what was really beautiful is we had his dad, Lynn, like the founder, come in, and we got to interview him and ask him questions. And yeah, it was just a really, really positive experience. And so from that, we received feedback, and the feedback was, it exceeded everybody's expectations. Like, it was absolutely incredible. And that's a kudos to everybody that was involved, how open they are to receiving coaching, to being vulnerable. And the vulnerability that was showed in that room on that workshop day was incredible in front of all those, because you have 20 other people in the room, because we had other partners involved at that point. And they were so open because I think what created that was really being able to provide a really safe place for them to be able to open up. So we received the feedback, and in particular, we thought, hey, if we have the one partner that's involved in the program, if we're able, he has really high standards. He's just like, has to be the best of the best, and like, which I love, and I appreciate him so much. And we thought, okay, if he's in, then we feel like we really have something. And he became our biggest advocate. And so that really started to launch the idea of, hey, how do we turn this into a full-time thing? And start being able to create other programs that support, we're up to 1,000 team members now, and we'll continue to grow. And so it's like, how do we create other programs that can support not just, managers, but also any of our team members? And so that's where we're at now. So now we're really starting to formulate those programs. And so where we're at right now, this new role is Director of Leadership and Performance, and it started on September 1st, kind of officially. And so we have 6 different programs. The first 3 are really one-on-one coaching. So it's that leadership development program that I was just referencing, the pilot one that we did in the spring. And then we do a continuous coaching program. So what we found was, out of all 12 people that took the program in the spring, all of them are still receiving coaching because they wanted to continue on with it, and which is wonderful, because that was 4 or 5 months ago. So that was really positive. So we're offering that for them. And then the third one is Leadership Within program. And that's really more kind of like, it's less structured than the leadership development program. We wanted to offer something to our team that was almost more along the lines of like life coaching, I guess.
That's important.
So it was as, personal coaching as it was professional. So those are the first 3. And then the second 3 that we're working on is, doing dealership visits. So just if there's a department that for whatever reason is just kind of, struggling with leadership or team building or whatever, then we go in and we kind of help support them through that process. Because you've been in dealerships, like, it's like parts managers, service managers, general manager, whoever, like, they're busy. Like, there is a lot going on in the dealership world, and it's hard to slow down to be able to really invest quality time and effort on that. So we just come in as a support system to help facilitate that for them. And then the last one, and I know I've been talking a lot, I'm sorry. And then the last one is, the last 2, the fifth one is a leadership workshop. So we'll go in and we'll run 2-day leadership workshops with the team at all of our stores, and it'll be really tailored to whatever it is that's most important to them. Like, I don't think that there's really the cookie cutter approach to this. I think the more tailored we can make it, the better. So we do that. And then the last one is Bannister University. And that's a big one, because that's really where we're going to collaborate with another company such as Udemy or BetterUp or Open Sesame, like some of these platforms, where we're really going to be able to bring in like experts to talk on, mental health, well-being, nutrition, exercise, like all of that, whilst still being able to create our own programs and implement it into that platform as well. So to be able to get kind of the best of both worlds. So yeah.
I have so many questions.
I know, I'm sorry.
They're taking notes.
I'm so sorry.
I didn't want to interrupt, because I'm like, okay, let's get through it, because I'm like, and I feel like, I don't know, do you have kids? I can't remember if
yeah, 13 and 10. Yeah. 2.
Okay, so you're probably past the Frozen stage where they watch Frozen every day.
Oh yeah, past that. Yeah, went through it, but past.
You're past it. But I feel like Anna, when her dad was telling the story, and she was just like, I just have so many questions.
Okay.
If you remember, I don't know.
Yeah,
I just watched it. I think I've seen it 100 times. But anyways, okay. So my first question, now that I've gone off subject and I'm totally lost them.
No, you're good.
Is really just, I love all of this, because You guys, I feel like you're starting a trend. This is not something every dealership does or even groups do. And I feel like this is what employees, this is what people want in their careers is their employer to help provide this support, not just to train them on their job, but train them on their life. That's what I got out of what you're saying, is you
Mhm.
guys are bringing experts in to help them improve on their life. And we don't take the time to do that for ourselves. So by the employer doing that, I feel like it's going to make people do it more. I think. Is that
Yeah,
the goal?
yeah, it is totally. Actually, I have like my work why is to maximize professional careers through personal performance. Like I don't think you could have one without the other. And what's so cool, Kaylee, is like I've never felt more, valued in what I'm doing right now from the Bannister group. And I think that that speaks volume to their character and who they are. And as well as the partners, like everybody's really embracing it. And they're like, look, we're all doing the best that we can. I think every dealership to some degree is trying to make this happen. I just
That's
think
true.
it's just so difficult because it's so busy and everybody has so much on their plate. It's just, we know it's important, but I think what happens is we tend to get in our own way to a degree where it's like because it's such a demanding industry in terms of like every 30 days, performance numbers, drive, and in all departments in every area, that it's difficult for us to really like both, I would say, like physically slow down enough to be able to like have a workshop and mentally to be able, because we're all driven, like we're all set up. We're not in this industry because we're lazy. Like we're in this industry because we're out to do something and make a difference. And so to be able to like have our brains actually like accept the philosophy of slowing down to speed up, I find is really challenging, especially when you're in the trenches the way that the dealerships are. It's tough. So we're really just trying to be a support system for our team members on every level and help them navigate through that. So yeah.
That makes sense. And so how are you guys achieving that? How are you actually getting your team members to slow down and focus on themselves? Because
Yeah,
that's
great
hard.
question.
We're
It is hard.
stubborn. We're like, no, we're fine. We don't need to slow down
Yeah.
and work on life.
Yeah.
Life's good.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Great question. So the way that we're doing it is kind of a slow rollout to a degree, meaning that if we go back to sort of the programs that we're offering, we started with a lot of the sort of senior managers. So like our parts managers, our service managers, our fixed operations managers, our general managers, our partner, like that, because I think that that's really where it all starts. And when I think of leadership, it's really about, I'll kind of walk you through, if it's okay, like kind of talk about what leadership is to me anyway, and kind of how I think about it, because I think it ties into your question. Yeah, so it's like the way that I think about it is, well, I'll get a little bit vulnerable. I'll share this. So like I actually I have two books beside my bed. One of them is As a Man Thinketh by James Allen, and the other one is The Tao Te Ching. And when I was reading The Tao Te Ching, there was a passage in there that just hit me square between the eyes a couple of years ago. And anybody that knows me well knows that I've shared the story a million times. So I'll share it on a
Well, I've
podcast.
never heard it, so I'm
Well,
excited.
I'll share this thing. Yeah. So and then when I saw it, I was like, okay, so how can we relate this to the automotive industry? And so what it is that one person becomes a model for others. And then one department becomes a model for other departments. And then through that, one dealership becomes a model for other dealerships. And then through that, one dealer group becomes a model for other dealer groups. And then ultimately one industry for all industries. Meaning that I think we underestimate ourselves and our capabilities and the influence that we have on the people around us, especially as we get bigger in titles. And so but ultimately it doesn't matter about titles when it comes to leadership. It's like we all have the ability to influence. And that's what I mean by that is one person has the ability to influence an entire industry. And the more we can believe that and buy into that, I think the better we'll see our cultures become. And yeah, so I think that like to circle back and tie it back into your question and try to help answer that, I think it starts with one person. And then I think from there, they lead by example with it, and that'll inspire and influence another person to do it. And then all of a sudden, another person, another, and it'll just start to compound. So,
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's what happens look at social media and the way that we use that and put our messages out there. We're influencing people, we're inspiring people by what we're talking about. And then it's just kind of like then we're talking about it finally
Yeah.
or something.
Yeah,
So
totally.
yeah, and you pointed out too, like how I think when you were explaining all the different ones, you find that advocate for what you guys are
Mm.
trying to do, and that's so important because once you have that, then it just everything just kind of flows because you have more than one person like this is working.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, well
Yeah.
said. And that's exactly what happened. And that's how we were able to really bring this program to the forefront and for the Bannisters to create this role, which I think anyway, I believe is really unique to the industry. I don't know how many other director of leadership and performance titles are out there. I don't know. Maybe there are some, maybe there aren't, but I think that it just shows that that was created through what you just said. It's like we had 12 like raving fans, I suppose, and ambassadors that were able to help drive this whole thing forward. So it's a full collective. That's what I love about it. I love being around that energy and infused in it. It's like, hey, we're doing this together. It's not like one person. I would say Lori started to influence it, and then it started to build on from there, and now we are where we are, and we're just getting started, and that's the exciting part. So yeah.
That is so exciting. I'm excited to interview you from a year from now to
Yeah,
find out
yeah,
how it's
yeah,
going and how it's evolved too. Because as you get more people,
yeah.
you're going to get more ideas. What
Feedback.
works for yeah, it's going to be really great. And you're right. You just don't hear this type of title in dealerships. I think there are some that do similar things, but we just don't have someone, I guess,
Yeah.
directly in charge of it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that, we talk about, the way that this came to be was really through, I would say right place, right time, right family, like right fit. It was really a win-win situation. I think my background's a little bit unique as well. So it kind of flows into the same theme where it's like unique role, unique background. And so I think that everything just sort of aligned and so it worked out that way really well. I mean, I don't know, like I don't know that I could go out and like source this job somewhere else because I don't think any other dealer group would be even, like considering it or thinking about it. I'm sure that they would entertain it. I don't want to disregard that in any way, but nor would I
Yeah.
be looking for another dealer group. So that's for sure.
Yeah, don't say that. Then you might get a bunch of phone calls.
Yeah, we can edit it up.
But okay, so I do want to talk a little bit about your background because I was doing some research. I didn't dig too deep. I'm not,
Yeah,
I
thank you.
sometimes I can dig deep to try to
Yeah,
track people down.
yeah,
No.
yeah.
But you wrote a book. That's
Yeah.
incredible. Like what inspired you to write the book?
Good question. So I was walking, my wife and I were on the beach in Mexico. This is 2018. It was the last week of February. And the kiddos were at some sort of play place. So it was just my wife and I were walking there. It was just us. It was kind of later at night. It was in the evening. And I had a lot of thoughts kind of built up in my head about what I would want to share. And then I just said to her, I just turned to her and it was just like a spur of the moment thing. And I was like, hey, I think I'm ready to write a book and just put it out there. And any of us in the industry, in the auto industry, knows how important it is to have a supportive spouse because like it can be such a grind. And so of course she was like, yeah, absolutely. Like you got this, you can do it. All the supporting words you could imagine. And so we fly back home, and 3 weeks later, I had the book written. But like I literally started from scratch, and then within 3 weeks had it written, and then I had to go down the journey of trying to figure out how to self-publish it, which was like a lot of work. That took months, not weeks. That was a lot.
Yeah.
And then it turned out, and I wouldn't change anything. You reflect back on situations like that, and I don't know if you'll do the same thing with podcasts. Where you're like, oh, maybe I could ask a different question there, or took it down a different path, or we can kind of be our own worst critic in that regard. And
Yeah.
I was doing that off the start a little bit, but then I learned to kind of let go of that and do it. No, like I knew what I knew at the time, and I shared what I thought was the truth and what needed to be kind of shared. And so I'm proud that it came together and thankful that I had the support around me to make it happen. And somehow, some way, saved the screenshot. It got to number 12 on Amazon up here in Canada. And that was without like any kind of marketing. And I had no idea how that happened still to this day. And it was kind of cool. And the other thing is it was in the sales category. So that's ultra competitive. It wasn't I didn't even put it in the automotive category for some
Yeah,
reason.
that's competitive. There's a
Yeah.
lot of sales books. That's what really spiked my interest. It's
Yeah.
called Rethink Selling. And so it's
Yeah.
definitely, I need to get that book. I actually was talking about this the other day. I have so much space now for
Yeah.
books. So
Everybody go
I have
check out.
another one over here. I'm
Oh
like, I
yeah,
need
you
more
do too.
books.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I'll be more than happy to send you one.
Oh
Um,
no, I'll get one. But if you do send me one, I want one signed.
okay, I'll sure. Sounds good. So rethink selling was the subtitle is kind of catchy. It's like, why do you only know 20% of sales? And
Oh,
so yeah, so the reason for that is because like the purpose for the book was like I felt like we were getting drilled with strategies and processes and do it this way, do it that way. And I just felt like there wasn't enough talk about like, hey, look, like the amount of stress that gets put on a sales, like this was particularly for salespeople and
yeah.
sales managers. It was like the amount of pressure that's put on a salesperson and the stress that comes with it, like they're not equipped to be able to handle that, especially if you become like a quote unquote high performer and you're selling a lot of vehicles, or even if you're a 8 to 10 car person kind of thing. It's like that's stressful because you're trying to put food on the table. Like there's a lot that just comes with it. And so and then also too, it's like okay, so let's say you become a high performing salesperson and now all of a sudden your income's changing. It's like nobody talks about what you should do with money or how to navigate through that. And so there's a whole chapter dedicated to that. It's just not about me telling you how to be, I'm not a financial advisor, but it's just bringing some things to the forefront and just basically more about awareness around it. So that was the purpose of it. I was really passionate about it, and it's amazing. I would have never guessed that we're here in 2023, so 5 years later, that it's still being talked about. So that's cool.
Hey, I'm super interested because I mean I've always been a salesperson, and I think that most salespeople don't have a degree or didn't go
Right.
to college for, and so it happens when you're a really high performer, you make a lot of money, and then you're like, okay, what do I do? This is
Yeah.
crazy. And then there's so much stress too because you're like, once you hit that level, you're like, I want to keep hitting that or I want to keep going higher.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Totally.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's
So
really cool that you wrote that.
yeah, thank you. So the 80/20 thing was, or why you only know 20% of sales is because success is 80% psychological and 20% skill. And I just felt like all we talked about was the skill and not about the psychology at all. So
That's so cool. I love it.
yeah.
I'm like, I want to buy it now so I can read it.
Cool.
I need a new book to read.
All right. There you go. Awesome.
Well, okay. And then you also have an ebook, which
Mhm.
that's called the Daily Dose. So it doesn't come out daily. It's just one ebook. What
Right.
is the Daily Dose about?
Yeah, so a couple of years ago, when I was a general manager at Acura in Saskatoon, one of my main objectives was really to try and help improve the culture. Not that it was bad, but just it could use a little bit of a boost. And so what I started to do was pull quotes because I have this app called Insight Timer. And so I have it as a widget on my main screen on my phone, and every morning it populates a new quote. I just kind of reflect on it a little bit. Yeah,
Yeah.
and
I
so
think you just wrote a post about that where a lot of your posts, you reflect on your quotes that you see for the day.
yeah,
I think.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
awesome. Yeah, good research. So, so what I started doing every morning at Acura was I would expand on the quote. So I'd pull a quote, I get in early, and then I'd share first thing in the morning with the team. And then after about a week of doing it consistently, I started to get some feedback like, wow, that really resonated. And anyway, so it just started to get really positive feedback and momentum. So did that for like 2 years and collected. Yeah. So, and I would like the process was very intuitive. And so I would pull the quote while I was at work and then I would just write it. And it would literally take 5 minutes. I would just share whatever I thought that it meant and elaborate on it. And then did that for 2 years. And then I was like, okay, so, and then once I transitioned more or less into the director of operations role, I didn't really have like a team, so to speak. I got away from it. But what I did was I pulled 66 of what I felt were like the most impactful doses that I shared every day, like a daily positive dose. And then I just
Yeah.
put it into that ebook. And the way that I share it on the website or in my LinkedIn profile, if you view through it, there's no email address, there's nothing like that. Just click the thing and it'll populate the PDF right away for you if you're interested. And then it's just something that you can read through every single day if you like. So
Wow, that's really cool. And so was it just a random number, 66, or was it just like
Yeah,
You
good
just had to
question.
stop at 60. It's just such a random number.
Yeah, I know. Well, I'm sure other people are asking themselves the same question.
66
There's
could be significant to a lot of people. It
it
is to
can,
me.
yeah. Okay. Why? Tell me about that.
Well, my dad was born in 66, and
Okay.
I'm pretty sure, was this it? Yeah, and then Vans, isn't that when Vans started? The shoes, Vans?
Oh, there you
66?
go. Okay. That's significant. I love
Yeah.
it. That's awesome. So where it came to be was not from Vans, unfortunately, but it was, I there's a bunch of different research on habits. And so it was kind of
Oh,
like 66 days is the way that I understand it that it takes to kind of like fully form a habit. So I thought, okay, so let's go with 66. If you read one every single day, after 66 days, you'll get in the habit of
it'll
training your
be.
mind to look, yeah, and to look for, positive affirmations in your mind and just all of that. So yeah.
That makes sense because you have to be consistent.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah, I've gone away from some things, but I reprinted all my gratitude and affirmation stuff that I need
Oh,
to read every day.
that's awesome. Yeah,
So,
it's one thing I would encourage you to do, and you probably do it anyway. But what I find really helpful is when I'm going through like a gratitude practice and trying to like stack gratitude. What I find is like it's one thing to think about gratitude, but then a whole nother thing to really feel it. And I think that's where the magic is. I don't think that we feel the gratitude as much as we do just like quickly think about it. Like, oh yeah, I'm grateful for that. And then to
no,
take it
feeling it. Yeah.
is
Go
huge.
ahead.
And then
Sorry.
no, don't be. No, it's your show. One step further than that is like it's one thing to be grateful for what we currently have in life, but then a whole nother thing to be grateful for what's yet to come. And that's the exciting part. What am I grateful for that's yet to kind of come into my life?
Yeah, that totally makes sense. I'm like reflecting on that because I feel like I'm in this stage where I've been working really hard on all the things that I was desiring, and I feel like I'm getting there to where I've really desired a lot of things. But
Yeah.
I remember just feeling grateful for all of where I was at that point too. Like that was the most important thing to me was like it's not that I'm unhappy with where I am. I'm happy
Hmm.
with what I have and because we went through so many transitions in our life for in
Yeah.
the last however many years. It feels like 5 years. I don't know.
Yeah.
But going from like living in a fifth wheel, buying a house, having a baby,
Wow.
and then having another baby, it's like all
Oh,
these different things.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
all of it, I was so grateful for each experience, even though it felt like I didn't have that much. I still
Hmm.
had so much, if that makes
Yeah.
sense. So I get what you're saying. I'm
Yeah.
feeling the gratefulness. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, congratulations on the path that you've had in the journey over the last 5 years or so. That's incredible.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been incredible. It feels incredible to be where I am right now, just in my own space and
Yeah.
office right
Yeah.
now. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
But this is about you, not me.
It's okay.
The last thing I wanted to bring up before we wrap up is you also have a newsletter which you put out every Saturday. I want to touch on that too because I think a lot of the stuff you put out is very helpful. So if anyone is not
Oh, thank
following
you.
you, I'm sure they're going to follow you now.
Oh, wow. Thank
Um,
you. Yeah.
so what is the newsletter about?
Leadership. It's really about anything and everything. It's kind of like there are some strategies that I'll share, but there's also and stories that I'll share in reflection on my own journey that will be relatable and resonate with I think the audience that will be attracted to a newsletter like this. And then also just about personal well-being as well. So it's sort of an all-encompassing newsletter in that regard, like personal or professional, but it's in the realm of leadership. Like I think all leadership starts with self, and so that's going to be the intention is to kind of gravitate more towards that. But I also understand that like the way we are is like we want some strategies. We want to know like one of the ones that I shared was like how to end a one-on-one session when you're meeting with your team and how to kind of drive them into action and intrinsic motivation and all of that and kind of work them through a framework for that. So that's one example of kind of
Okay.
what I shared about. Yeah. So
That
every
makes sense.
Saturday, yeah. What's that?
Oh, I said that makes sense because people do want strategy, but I also do like that you add stories into it because I think
Yeah.
I know that I appreciate stories, and I think a lot of more people just like we just connect better with stories when you're just like you just
Yeah.
We just like it. Like, feel like we're there with you.
Yeah, and I think it adds an element of credibility too. It's not just, I don't want to just share knowledge that's been regurgitated from somewhere else. I want to be able to try and make it as relevant as possible. And I think the way you do that is through stories that you've actually lived yourself. So
Yeah, because your experience with it's going to be a little bit different, even though the strategy is probably just the same. That's how we learn from people, is just hearing the stories. So yeah, that's cool. Every Saturday.
every Saturday, yeah, you betcha.
That's impressive too, because that takes time
Yeah.
and energy to write.
Yeah.
So you must have, were you a good writer in school? Like, did you like writing?
I was the guy being I was the guy that would read the back of a book in school, and then like the middle chapter, maybe the first chapter, maybe a bit of the last chapter, and then I'd write a 5-paragraph essay off that, and and it was like my subject. So yeah,
That's so funny. I used to do that too, because I
oh,
didn't
did you?
want to
Okay.
because I didn't want to take the time, because I actually I'm not a good reader. So I'm very slow. And I remember my mom taking me to the library to get tapes to listen to
Yeah.
books, because I just was not a fast reader. So I never, when book projects, all that stuff, I'd never read the book.
No, we're the same.
But I always got like a B or a C on.
Yeah, you did fine. Yeah, exactly.
Well, and I would ask all my friends questions, so I could figure it out.
Smart. I like that. Good for you.
So I'm glad I'm not the only one that.
No, you're not alone. I don't think we're alone either. I don't think it's just you and me. I'm sure I'm sure there's somebody listening that can resonate. So
Well, and now kids are going to have ChatGPT to do that stuff.
yes,
So
exactly. Yeah. Different
Okay,
world.
I don't want to get on that subject though.
Okay. Good call.
We'll go down that rabbit hole. Okay, so is there anything that you wanted me to ask you, or anything that we didn't talk about before we wrap up the show?
No, I think I mean, great work, Kaylee. Thank you so much for having me on. Great questions. I think just what I would encourage is, at least what I found in my life, is like I have a tendency of getting too serious at times. And so I think, you've done such a great job of exemplifying laughter and lightheartedness. I think we just need more of that in the dealership world. And I think that starts with us. So let's just bring that to the table a little bit more and lead with love, and away we go.
Yeah, I love that. Thanks for wrapping up the show, and thanks for coming on. And if anyone wants to reach out to you, I'm sure they can find you on LinkedIn. That's probably the best way.
You got her. Okay. Thank you, Kaylee.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. PartsEdge, the power tool for your parts department. We hope you're leaving feeling motivated, challenged, and inspired.